Hello and welcome to RV Advisors All Things RV Podcast. I am your host, Kathy Conrad. I've been enjoying the RV lifestyle for 5 years and I love helping new RVers realize their RV dreams. This podcast is about RV education, resources, adventures, and the amazing people who love RVing. It is also about discovering the freedom RVers experience, the connection with nature we are all so grateful for, and how RVing enriches our lives. On this podcast, you can expect us to talk about all things RV, including the good stuff, the challenging stuff, and everything in between. So, join us weekly and enjoy the lineup of guests we have in store for you. Hi, friend, and welcome back to the podcast. I did not publish a podcast last week because we were on vacation and traveling to and from Colorado and then spending a week there visiting family. But I had some key takeaways that I wanted to share with you in hopes that you find it helpful for your RV travel. When I started doing research before we bought our travel trailer, started researching in 2017. One of the things that stuck with me was that a lot of the YouTube channels were talking about this 333 rule of RV travel. And basically it's a guideline that many travelers follow to make their journeys more enjoyable and less stressful. And it consists of 1, trying to limit your driving hours to 3 per day to help prevent driver fatigue and allows you to enjoy the journey and your destination more. And the second one is to plan to stay at least 3 days at each destination. And this gives you enough time to explore the area and relax and recharge before hitting the road again. And then the third is to arrive by 3 p.m. so that you have plenty of daylight for setting up your RV and unwinding and addressing any issues that might, arise before it gets dark. And this is a great plan if you're not on a timeline. If you're on a timeline, you can do some of this, but not all of it. And so what I found is we started out tired because when you're full-time and stationary, there's a lot more effort goes into getting ready to hit the road. So unpacking things and getting everything buttoned up to hit the road, it takes a little more effort than when I used to pick up the trailer at storage when we lived in a house. So the other thing, besides these 3, the 3 hours, 3 days, and arrive by 3 p.m., I think it's also really helpful to pack a lunch, pack some snacks, pack some drinks, so that you stay hydrated and fueled, for energy, to be able to stay awake and such. And it also prevents you from having to find a place to stop to eat, whether if it's at a restaurant or whatever, because access in and out is always a concern. And not all places are conducive to large RVs or towing a trailer. And the other thing is that, there's can be delays, travel delays. We ran, construction delays. We ran into a construction delay. There was also a fire on the highway, which meant that they shut the highway down and diverted traffic to a frontage road that was, pretty much a traffic jam, which slowed us down. And those are all things that can happen. And if you already have a long travel day planned, and then you have one of these delays, it makes for an even longer travel day. And then you arrive later, you arrive tired. When you're tired, that's when you make mistakes. So if you can at least work with the modified version of this, if you're on a timeline, it can be helpful. So we took 3 days to go from southern Idaho to Monument, Colorado, which is north of Colorado Springs. And so we took 3 days to get there. And we did it, but arrived tired, and we had those, delays, which made for even longer days. We travel with our 2 dogs, one which has very high anxiety around travel. And I kind of use my natural remedies that I use for her, which generally takes the edge off, but we don't usually travel several days in succession. So it was getting really rough on her. And so sometimes she just would start scratching at the crate. She needed to take a break. So we might have stopped a little more frequently because of that, because she needed a break. So I ended up actually taking her to a vet in Colorado and getting her some medicine. I don't like to take drugs myself, so I don't like to give them to my dogs either, but she really needed some relief for the ride home. So we decided on a combination of 2 different medicines to help her to have a little more relaxing ride home. And plus we have two crates, but we often put them both in one larger crate, and we decided to pick up another crate for the ride home so they could be separate, so that if she was really knocked out, she could rest comfortably without being squished by the other dog. So she did have a little better travel home. We did take 4 days to get home, which really actually made a pretty big difference. So the very last day was like a 2-hour and 40-minute drive time. But of course, you add in the fuel stops and what have you. But we still got home midday, and we're not so exhausted. So I really encourage you to be aware of travel fatigue. And we split the driving, right? So it's not one person doing the whole time. So that helps as well. We made our days a little bit shorter, still packed a lunch and snacks, except for the very last day, because that was the shortest day. I wasn't so concerned. We had some snacks, but I wasn't concerned so much about making lunch. And that helped too. We didn't arrive to have to set everything up again exhausted. It went pretty smoothly. So I hope you find this helpful. It takes a lot more mental energy and stamina to drive a large RV or pull a trailer, because you really just have to be super vigilant around defensive driving and that. Because with us, where you're talking about 7,000 pounds we're towing behind us, our truck by itself doesn't stop as fast, and you add that extra weight, even with trailer brakes, engine exhaust brake, you don't stop as fast. So you have to really be aware of keeping your distance from the cars ahead of you. And there are some not so courteous drivers out there who, might cut in on you too close and that. So it just takes a lot of mental energy, and you get fatigued driving sooner than you would just driving a car. So staying aware of that and keeping yourself hydrated and eating. It's important to have nutrition while you're driving. And also, there's going to be stops for fuel and for bathroom breaks and to stretch your legs. And before you know it, it felt to me going out there like, oh my gosh, like clock is moving fast, we're moving slow. So if there's any way you can fit into your schedule a little extra time so that you can arrive at your destination more rested. What I did notice on the way back is that we were not so exhausted the night before. We got to bed earlier, which allowed us to get up earlier, which allowed us to take everything down before it got hot. And driving was just more pleasant, and we were just in general more rested. And I think that's really important when you're even driving a car, but when you're towing a trailer or driving a large RV, it's important to be alert and rested while you're driving. It was interesting on the way there, I think because we encountered some wind. Certainly it wasn't wind that wasn't safe enough to drive in. It was fine to drive in it, but it was still resistance. And we were climbing elevation, a lot of elevation, and we went through DEF fluid like crazy. And I don't remember experiencing that before. Plus we forgot to throw in an extra box of DEF. So we had to stop and get more DEF, and we bought extra because you have to have that, for a diesel engine. And that was a little bit of a surprise to look down and realize, oh my gosh, we're really low on DEF. It was full when we left. So And, you just want to be feeling good enough to really enjoy the journey, because that's all part of it. And each state has its own beauty, and I really enjoy that aspect of it, the different topographies and colors and terrains, and being able to enjoy the journey. And I always take a lot of pictures if I'm not driving of the scenery, which is fun. And then I usually send those out to friends and family in our travels. And then when you have dogs, it may mean stopping sooner than you normally would, depending on how well your dog travels. If you have a very nervous traveler like we have, if she starts scratching at the crate, then it's time for us to pull over and give her a little break. I hope that you found this helpful, and it's a great plan if you have no time restrictions, 3 hours a day, staying 3 days at each stop, and arriving by 3 p.m. It's a great plan. And even if you do a modified version of this, it will be helpful. Make sure you have plenty of water with you to stay hydrated so that you don't get sleepy. And if you can take turns driving, it's great to be able to give each other a break along the way. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in today to RV Advisors All Things RV Podcast. Please join us again next week for more RV education, resources, adventures, and interesting people. Until then, wishing you amazing adventures, safe travels, and I hope to see you on the road.